Hello my loves, it's Monica and welcome back to a new video. I'm so excited because today I am doing a bit of a follow-up video. Around this time last year I posted a video about like cozy fantasy cottagecore books that I had been reading recently, and I've just been like back in that mood over the past few weeks, so I've been slowly acquiring some new cozy fantasy stories to pick up. And today I'm going to be sharing some of those with you all in a little book haul, and then I also just have some cozy adjacent books. Once it hits August, my mind is just like, autumn is coming. It's around the corner, even though it's like 90 degrees out, not even close to it being or feeling like autumn, but that is where I'm at mentally. So I feel like I've just been wanting to pick up more like mystery stories or academic stories, fantasies, things like that. So I have a few of those also that I'll be talking about in this video, but I'm going to start off with the cozy fantasies. If you're new here and you love all things cozy, then you should subscribe so that you can see all of my future videos. I love to talk about cozy games and books and just sharing my life in general, so definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me over on Instagram and TikTok if you want more like fashion slash life content. That'll be there. Gonna dive right on in with some books that I have recently picked up and I'm very excited to share with you all. First up is one that I've had pre-ordered for a while and I've been so excited for, and it finally came in a little bit ago, and that is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, and this is the first book in a new series, and I believe each book is going to be following a different protagonist. They're just sort of like connected in the same universe. This is a Regency fantasy novel, which is a genre that I used to read a lot more of, but I haven't recently, and I've just been wanting to get back into, so I've been really excited for this one. And the main reason why I pre-ordered it is because it's been pitched as Pride and Prejudice meets Howl's Moving Castle. Anytime a book is compared to Howl's Moving Castle, that is an instant buy. Absolutely. Which I do fear because I feel like it's becoming more and more popular to compare books to Howl's Moving Castle. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but as of right now, very much an auto buy. Pride and Prejudice, hit or miss, because sometimes things are compared to Pride and Prejudice and I am just like, sure, it's set during the Regency era, but is it really comparable to Pride and Prejudice? I don't know. Anyways, in this book we follow Theodora Eddings, and she has been cursed by a fairy to only have half a soul, and this has caused some conflict in her life because it causes her to just not feel the same way that everyone else does, or she doesn't really have a sense of fear or embarrassment. And so yeah, this causes some conflict, especially with her aunt who she lives with, and her aunt and her cousin are heading to London for the season, and her goal, Theodora's goal, is to really just sort of like be a wallflower, blend in, and to not cause any trouble. But then this sleeping plague ends up spreading through London, and she ends up getting embroiled into this mystery by the Lord Sorcerer himself, who is very disliked. He's sort of like very much that like grumpy, doesn't like any other humans kind of character, and he draws her into these like dangerous fairy affairs when he discovers her condition. So anyways, it just sounds super lovely. And the blurbs also, like there's a blurb from Shelley Parker Chan, who is the author of She Who Became the Sun, which I loved, and it says, smart and subversive, Half a Soul will ignite your heart and your hope. And that's really the vibe that I'm getting from all the blurbs, is that it's going to be a very like comforting, cozy, whimsical kind of read, and I don't know, that just sounds absolutely perfect. So very excited to pick this one up. So the next book that I have, I feel like a lot of you probably already know is going to be in this book haul, and it's Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And yeah, this one I feel like has really popped off recently, and people have just been loving it, and it even got picked up. It's going to be published traditionally now. This was a self-published novel. I'm not sure when that one will be coming out, but that's super exciting for the author. And yeah, I love that even on the cover it says a novel of high fantasy and low stakes. Like, this is very much so a low stakes fantasy novel. And the reason why I was really excited to pick this one up is because if you guys play like cozy games, there's this game called Coffee Talk, which this book just feels like the novelization of Coffee Talk in some ways. In this book we follow Viv, who is just this like battle-born orc who wants to leave behind the battles in lieu of a new career of opening a cafe, a coffee shop. And there's also supposed to be a lesbian romance in it. And yeah, it just sounds so wholesome and cozy. And yeah, it's supposed to be like very slice of life, like them just like opening this coffee shop and running this coffee shop. And it just sounds like everything that I love about cozy gaming in a book. So I'm really excited for this one. I definitely want to read this one soon. I've also heard that the audiobook for this is really lovely. The author apparently narrates it himself, so I'm gonna have to look into that. I don't know if it's still available though, if it is getting like a traditional publishing deal, so I'll have to look into that. I didn't think about that. I wish I had thought about that before it got the deal. Anyways, very excited. Then I picked up A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I feel like this author has been like getting a lot of hype recently too, for some of their other books, but this one just sounded so fun. It sounds like a middle grade or lower YA fantasy novel. Basically, we follow Mona, who is a wizard, and in this world some wizards have like very minor powers where they have just like very specific abilities. For example, Mona's magic only works on bread, so she can, you know, make gingerbread men come to life and make the most delicious bread you've ever had and things like that. I already love that magic like idea just to start, but one day she arrives at her parents' bakery and she discovers a dead body, and more of these like niche magicians keep showing up dead, and Mona ends up getting blamed for this one, and so she is sort of like having to unravel this mystery of what's going on. This one just sounds really cute. It sounds like a cozy mystery meets a cozy fantasy, so I'm very excited for that. And I've heard that it also like explores some really interesting ideas around like just how society often like fails children, so I'm intrigued for that and just excited to read this book in general. This next one I picked up because it was just like in the recommended section when I was shopping for that last book, and it just sounded intriguing to me, and it's called The Wizard's Butler by Nathan Lowell. And in this one it's supposed to be a very slice of life, like literally just sort of like reading about this man's job as a butler, but he's a butler to a magician. And the thing that like really intrigued me about this one is that, so one of my favorite books of all time is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Shigeru, and I love that book because you follow this butler who isn't really the main character of the story in a lot. Like the plot that's going on is really happening to other characters and is really happening to his boss, but through the main character, the butler, you get this very nuanced look of like Britain at the time. Sorry for any movement, my camera battery died. Anyways, in my opinion, it's one of the most quintessential British novels, which is why my feathers always get ruffled when people list it as like translated fiction, basically only because Kazuo Shigeru is Asian. Anyways, The Wizard's Butler seems to have a similar vibe, maybe not as like political or literary fiction heavy, but where you have a butler and through him you sort of see the plot that's happening with his boss. But this one is also like set in a contemporary world from what I understand, so I also thought that was kind of interesting, and I'm just intrigued for like a story that is going to be very much a slice of life. So we'll see how I get along with this one. This next one is the last one that I picked up for like specifically being a cozy fantasy story, and that is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. And I've been really wanting to read something by Catherine Addison for a while, and this one just sounded really different from anything I've read. I will be honest, it does intimidate me a bit. There is like, so all of these pages are names. These are all names, and a lot of them have, like, they all sound, a lot of them sound very, very similar like structures and things, so that kind of intimidates me, but from what I understand, it's kind of done on purpose. In this book, we follow Maya, who is the youngest son of the emperor, and he has lived his entire life in exile. And at the start of the book, every single person in front of him in line for the throne dies in a mysterious crash. And so then Maya is thrust into this position of power that he never expected to have and also never really wanted. And he has lived exiled from the kingdom, so he's also lived away from all of these names. So we're supposed to feel lost because Maya is lost, is my understanding, but also the like social hierarchies and structures of the kingdom too is very like jarring and different for him, and all he wants is to just do a good job for his kingdom. And so this book is supposed to be very, very character driven, very political, a ton of world building, like really intricate world building, but also is supposed to be like very warm and cozy because of Maya's character and just how like kind he is, and that just sounds really lovely. Like, I'm very excited to read a fantasy that's basically about a kind person. That just sounds great. So yeah, I'm very excited for this one, and I think this might be the one that I pick up next because I've just heard such wonderful things about it from the people who have read it. So yeah. So next I have two very, very, very large fantasy books, and they are The Assassin's Quest and Ship of Magic. So The Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb, both of these are by Robin Hobb. This is the third and final book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in this whole universe of Robin Hobb's, and I picked this up because my friend Reagan, I feel like she has been like the one woman Robin Hobb advocate, or I forget what the word is, but she just loves Robin Hobb, and I've been meaning to pick up this series for so long because I, you know, always love Reagan's recommendations. So I've been really excited to do that, and when we were in Europe together, I finally did, because then I could get the pretty European edition of the first book, and I of course loved it. It was so good. I'm currently reading the second one. I will admit they're definitely a bit denser fantasies. Also, I think I've had a bit of COVID brain fog, so it's been a little bit difficult, but I'm finally through that, I think. So I've been really excited to like just continue diving into this series. So this is the last one, and then this is the first book in the spin-off trilogy, and this one takes place on a ship, as you might imagine from the title, Ship of Magic. And I love boats. I love fantasy that's set on a boat. I love pirates and ships, and yeah, I just think they're so fun. I also love like spaceships. There's just something about it, like, I just find so magical and exciting. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to this series specifically, and they look stunning. I'm so excited to one day just like have the full collection on my shelves because they're just such beautiful editions. So yeah, these are the Europe editions. So if you want these like really pretty ones, you got to order them online, or get them in Europe if you're just in Europe already. So recently I read my first Agatha Christie novel, Crooked House, and I really enjoyed it, and I just want to read more whodunits. So I do want to read more Agatha Christie, but I also want to read more by other authors, specifically authors of color. So if you have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments. But I ended up picking up this one, which is The Hanjin Murders by Seishi Yokomaizo, and this just looks so fun. So basically this is an award-winning classic mystery introducing Japan's most famous detective. So this is set in 1937 in the village of Okamura, and everyone in the village is abuzz because there's going to be this big wedding. But then on the night of the wedding, the household are woken up by a terrible scream followed by the sound of eerie music. Death has come to Okamura. leaving no trace but a bloody samurai sword thrust into the pristine snow outside the house. And then amateur detective Kosuke comes to the scene to try and solve this murder, and this is the first book in a series following this detective. And yeah, I don't know, this just sounds really fun and interesting, and I honestly am obsessed with the cover, and I'm very excited that these are being translated and that I can read them, because again, trying to read more whodunits but wanting a diverse range of whodunits to read. So let me know if you have any other recommendations, because definitely on the lookout. This next book is one that I have been meaning to pick up since before it came out. I've been waiting for the paperback version, and I finally spotted it at the bookstore, and I'm so excited because it's definitely giving like a dark academia vibes, and that is These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. And yeah, this one has been compared to The Secret History, to Call Me By Your Name. It's been like called like Hitchcockian dark academia. All of these buzzwords just sound very intriguing, very exciting. So this is set in 1970s Pittsburgh. We follow two students. We follow two male students who are just sort of like toxically obsessed with each other, and they kind of keep like coming back to each other in this really negative, bad way. In this book we have Paul, who is just this very sensitive, insecure boy, and he is going off to college to Pittsburgh to get away from his family after who are grieving the death of his father, and there he meets Julian, who is this very worldly guy that sort of like catches his attention. And this line really sold it to me. Paul sees Julian as his sole intellectual equal, an ally against a suffocating conventional world. Listen, I love some pretentious characters. I find them so fun to read about, and I always love that sort of style of writing. From what I understand, this is two people who are very, very, very bad for each other, very maybe not great people in general, and their story. And I think that there's probably going to be some murder and just chaotic things that occur. Then I picked up Asylum by Nina Shope, and this is one that there's like a bookstore that I go to a lot here in the city, and they have like a whole section of like indie press fiction, and I've looked at this one like multiple times every time I walk in there because the cover just really draws me in. I really loved, there's this book called A Dowry of Blood that I read like, was it a year ago, a couple years ago now? Ooh, time just moves so fast. Anyways, I think I read it last year, and I loved it, and I feel like it's still wildly underhyped in my opinion. It's just such a good like dark vampire story. Anyways, the cover of this was very much giving me similar vibes, and then I read the back and it compares this novel to be Mary Shelley meets Donna Tartt, and I was like, I have to know, is it actually Mary Shelley meets Donna Tartt? And it's also really interesting to me because it's a historical fiction specifically inspired by the treatment of hysteria in women. And yeah, it just sounds super fascinating, and I'm so intrigued for this one, like really dark, vibey sort of historical fiction. And yeah, I was just really intrigued, so I finally picked it up. I think it has like less than 10 reviews on Goodreads, so we shall see what I think of this one. Okay, so this next one I picked up purely because, well, initially because the cover was intriguing, and then I was looking at Goodreads reviews, and someone on Goodreads compared this book to The Diviners meets The Night Circus. Sold. And that is The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill, and this just looks stunning. I will say that from what I understand, this does explore some really, really dark themes in it, so check your content warnings before if that is something that is a concern. So in this book we follow these two people who as babies were abandoned to an orphanage in 1914 Montreal, and they grow up as children together and they fall in love, and one Pierrot is this like piano prodigy, and then there's Rose, who is just this dancing prodigy basically, but then during the Great Depression they get separated and they both sort of find their way through the underbelly of this city in very different ways, and it just sounds stunning. Like this, I have to read this from the synopsis. The Lonely Hearts Hotel is a love story with the power of legend, a tale of charismatic pianos, invisible dance partners, radicalized chorus girls, drug-addicted musicians, brooding clowns, and an underworld whose economy hinges on the price of a kiss. In a landscape like this, it takes great creative gifts to overcome one's origins. It might also take true love. It just sounds stunning. It just sounds so beautiful, and I'm so excited for this. One of the blurbs says it is a larger-than-life, gritty love story that reads like a fable. Cool and panoramic, yet shockingly intimate and wisely philosophical. These are like all the things that I love in fiction. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I'm a little bit nervous about like some of the content things that people have mentioned, but I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get through that and just love this book as much as I really hope that I will, because it sounds beautiful. Then I finally picked up In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and I've been wanting to read this for so long. Kat from Paperback Dreams read this and loved it, and that's who put it on my radar, and I've been wanting to pick it up ever since. It is the author's memoir, but every single chapter is told in a different narrative style or using like different narrative tropes, and that just sounds so cool to me. And I've heard it's brilliant, so that's why I picked it up. That's really all I have to say about it. Also, the cover is very cool, so. Then I have a copy of Nuclear Family by Joseph Hahn, and this one I picked up because my friend Matthew was reading it and it just sounded very intriguing. So we follow the Cho family, and they live in Hawaii, where they have a Korean restaurant. They have these dreams of like franchising the restaurant, and especially I guess Guy Fieri like stops at their restaurant and causes all this buzz, so they're really excited for the future of the restaurant. But then their son Jacob ends up there, like this video goes viral of him trying to cross the border between North and South Korea, and it causes all of this like conspiracy and just like negative sentiment towards the restaurant and the family in general. What they don't know is that Jacob is actually possessed by his grandfather's soul or ghost, who is obsessed with getting to North Korea to reunite with his family who was lost over there. And I get chills even thinking about that. You know, I feel like you can't really meet a Korean person who hasn't been affected by the split between North and South Korea. Also intrigued because this is set leading up to the 2018 fake missile crisis that occurred in Hawaii. I don't know if you guys remember this, but basically in 2018 a missile announcement was made for all of Hawaii that there was a missile coming and that basically everyone was going to die. And I think about that all the time, and I cannot fathom what it must have been like to like live in that moment, and then like just realize that it was just an error. Anyways, so this book is leading up to that moment also. Yeah, it just sounds very unique. I love this like mixture of like having this family story with also this like supernatural element. It just sounds really intriguing, and I'm very excited for it. So yeah, hyped to have that one. And then, oh my gosh, we are on the last book. This one I'm actually a little bit nervous about because I picked it up and I feel like lately it's been getting very mixed reviews. I feel like people either 5-star it or like really dislike it. So we'll see where I end up, but it's Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. So in this book we follow Vera, who's going home for the first time in a long time. Basically her father was a serial killer and buried bodies in their basement, and so she's obviously avoided going home for quite a while, and so in this book she returns home to stay with her mother, but there is this like parasitic artist who is also staying in the guest house, and then all of these like mysterious notes in her father's handwriting start showing up. So yeah, it's supposed to be a very gothic, eerie novel. Honestly, what really sold me on this one is the dedication at the beginning, which reads, "This is the story of monsters and what they do to those who love them, those who fear them, and those who are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or from a different perspective, those who are in the right place at the right time. Serendipity is just as cruel as it is kind." This book is dedicated to anyone who has ever loved a monster. And I just love that. I thought that was a really amazing dedication. And then also the first line of this book, "The Crowder house clung to the soil the way damp air clings to hot skin." That is a good first line in my opinion. So I don't know, I read that, I saw this beautiful cover, and it sold me on the book. So I'm hoping that I am one of the people who loves it. Obviously, you know, I tend to like books that tend to be kind of polarizing because I just feel like they also tend to be more interesting. So we'll see where I end up with this one. But yeah, that is my entire haul. Those are all the books that I picked up. I would love to hear from you all. If there are any of these books that you are most interested in, let me know. If you've read any of these, I'd love to know your thoughts, but please no spoilers, or just let me know what books you've recently picked up. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Once again, please subscribe for more videos in the future, and be sure to give this video a like. Apparently YouTube really likes that, so if you've made it this far, definitely give this video a like, leave a comment, subscribe, find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm giving you a homework list. Anyways, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!